Okay, so that's your first
That's the first.
business.
And then the big one I left right away.
Uh-huh.
I went to VeriSign and hated it, and
Yeah.
it was not for me. And right away I was like, look at me, I'm a mobile entrepreneur. Like I did okay, I made some money, but I didn't start the company.
Yeah.
Right. I said I'm going to start my own company, and I had all these VCs in Boston saying, Andy, you're a genius, you should do your own company. Let me give you money. So I did, and I said, the idea was we can't keep paying for things with our phone bill. Like people's phone bill, parents were like, whoa, my phone bill is like $200. My kid just bought, horoscope of the month and whatever, MTV music clips of the week or something, because the internet really wasn't there. So I started an ad network, a mobile ad network. Like we were familiar. They were barely getting off the ground on the wired web here, which supports all the websites. I wanted to do the same for mobile advertising. So I was kind of one of the real early guys in mobile advertising.
What is mobile advertising? Like way back when?
Way back when. It was before apps. So it was for mobile websites, which usually sucked. First two customers, Playboy and Univision, same guys. And we would, insert their ads. So you couldn't we all take for granted that you open your phone and the web looks great. But back then, they had to make a separate website because they couldn't snap the desktop version into a mobile version. You couldn't run the same ads. You couldn't see them. They weren't optimized for mobile. So we did all that.
Jesus.
So we started an ad network for that and just picked up all these publishers as we went
No,
along.
when you're talking about ad, give me an example. I open my phone and what do I see? And what's the purpose of the ad?
Back then or now? Or
now.
it's
Well,
still, so like, it could be anything, it could be it's just like a regular ad. Doesn't matter. Any ad you see on a regular website, that's what we would have back then on the mobile web.
On your phone.
But what happened, and the business was called Quattro Wireless, and it was me and Ishwar, the CTO, who I drove crazy at the technology guy at MCube, our old business. And it was hard because people didn't necessarily believe in the mobile web yet, and some were very forward, but thinking, but the advertisers weren't, and we had to get test budgets, and it was just hustle. So I needed to break out from other competitors. I needed a big idea. And so I said, how can I get the best websites? Because if you had the ESPNs or the CNNs or the Univision, you would get that was for you. You would get Procter and Gamble, right?
Yeah.
You would get big advertisers, and I needed the big advertisers. So I went to these companies. I said, you know what? Your websites suck. Take a look. This mobile is a joke. You're losing customers, and more people are getting on their phone. How about I'll control everything. I'll make your site for free. I'll run the whole thing, but just let me keep the ad revenue, because it was small. And I convinced about 20 big brands to do that. So now all of a sudden my ad network had the real big publishers in it, whereas, I had CNN, I had the Weather Channel, I had all these others, whereas the other guys were with, busty ass girls websites and stuff like that, because those are the first ones to
the good ones.
Yeah, the good ones, the one that once people actually went to.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started.
Read.
That's how it all started. Lightning fast business, got in right at the right time, and the whole business was 3 years. And a year and a half into it, Ishwar came to me and he said, "We need to create an SDK." And I said, I don't even know what an SDK is. And that's basically a developer's kit. And I said, why is that? He said, because Apple and others are going to create apps, and no one's really going to go to the mobile web. They're just going to use apps. And I said, what's an app? And we went, he explained the whole thing. And I said, this sounds like a great idea. And we were like one of the first ones to put ads in apps. And then what happened after a while?
So if I'm playing Flappy Bird, a
little
little banner.
Yeah.
Every time I open my solitaire on the airplane, another game pops up. That's the sort of ads that you created.
Yes.
So you guys pretty much created the technology that says any single time you open this, there's a plugin in the background that's going to display an ad. So the pre-roll that you see in videos, but for mobile, okay.
Yeah, with targeting. We'd use your location. We'd use every bit of information we could store about you on your phone before a lot of these privacy issues, but even after, and then give you the right ad.
Okay.
Right? So you'd get the Hims ad, right? And I wouldn't.
Use it. Right. We made a joke earlier today because Hims is an erectile
and hair loss. So I would use it for the hair loss, and
And I would use it for the other stuff. No,
I don't know.
No. I don't have reptiles disorders. So I don't use it for. I'm here to advertise it.
Yeah, great product.
I would use it. Well, you got to use it before it starts. Because by the time you notice that your hair is being lost, it's too late.
Man. Look at that.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's
we'll
get
back to my hair. Plenty of time about that. So all of a sudden, We're like the app guys, right?
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of entries into this space, but now there's only 2 that really matter.
What a genius move to be like so quick to identify something that was going to be big and getting in there from the beginning. I mean, granted, you were doing it before that, but you know, the ad, I mean, obviously, like the ads are now massive, and people like me have been able to make a living just off of creating content and getting a percentage of the ad revenue. To give you an example, okay?
Yeah.
To give you an example, and I don't know the math on this, but to give you an example, let's call it every $10,000 that an ad makes, the creator only gets 40% of it on Twitter, on YouTube, or I don't know if it's 40 or 44. The rest. Oh no, we get 60. I don't even know how it breaks down, but it's only a percentage of it. Right. So ads are massive and massive and massive, and you got to keep all that revenue for all of the content
for a while until it became a real business. And then we said, okay, you know, now we stopped making the websites because they were making their own. They realized it was a real business, right?
Yeah.
We helped jumpstart an industry.
Yeah.
So my career has always been early, even here, right? Tomorrow is our 4th birthday for Energy, which is amazing and a blessing and a blast. But, you know, it was early 4 years ago. It's still early now, right?
Yeah.
As a business, but you want to get in early, but not too early. So we were in at a really good time because the internet was really booming on mobile and smartphones, and then the iPhone came out, and the user experience was better.
Yeah.
But my philosophy from the beginning was, and I think that's almost why at a subtle level we got along so well when we first met, which was, you got to support the content creators, and content needs to be, for the most part, free, or at least ad subsidized, so people could see what they're getting, and the content creators can make money also. And that was the whole premise behind it, right?
Yeah.
Just that, you know, let's not charge people for every little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sort of helped because you didn't have to pay $9.99 because the $9.99 came on 1 hour of ad runs depending on the user base.
Yeah.
Which is insanity to me. Which is good for us because we get paid, and you guys who are watching this don't have to put up any money to see this content. Any other time in history, you have to pay to be able to be entertained.
Yeah.
Period. You want to go see a movie? You got to pay your thing. YouTube has allowed you to sort of watch everything for free, but you're paying for it by watching an ad, by clicking on a link, by supporting and using the codes that creators use. So you become so big that and so successful in the app ad world that Steve Jobs looks at it and says, I want you.
So funny story. Basically, early, a bunch of entrants, kind of like when we got into esports. And then a couple years later, 10 or 15 that matter in my mind, like for orgs, kind of like now, and then a couple winners. And so it kind of came down to us and this company called AdMob out of California. And AdMob was more like Google AdSense, like you need a dentist in Sacramento or whatever, and we were high-end, good-looking ads. Very different business. And they got all the headlines, and it pissed me off because they were in Silicon Valley, and we were in Boston, and they were just the darling, and they had a bigger valuation, and they had a newsletter that everyone used, and all the media. Newsletters are smart, man. Or they had a newsletter with, like, graphs and data, and, like, every news outlet would use their data and put their, courtesy of AdMob, right? It just made them feel bigger. And perception's reality on some level. And they got bought, and for a lot of money.
By who?
Well, they originally got bought by Apple. That's what the word was. And I was bummed. I was like, Apple, they're in advert. Apple doesn't do this. Like, they were never on our radar. We thought maybe Google would buy us someday, or who knows, Yahoo back then.
Yeah.
And so I was bummed. So I said, you know what? Let's get out of here. We're working so fucking hard. So I took Ishwar and Lars, my co-founder, to England. We flew over to see a Patriots game. Patriots were playing one of those first games at Wembley, you know, and we went and we were hanging out. We had a bunch of beers the first day, and then we went to the game the second day, and we were wrecked and tired, and we had to walk, I remember 4 miles to get back to wherever we were. And my phone rings, which was weird, right, at that time of in life, and I pick it up, and I'm with the guys, and I just stopped, and they kept walking, and the phone rings, and it says the other end of the phone, it's like, Andy, this is Steve Jobs. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm like totally in a fog. I'm like, oh, great, okay, thanks. And I hung up. And then the phone rang again a little bit later, and it was the head of corporate development, the guys who buy companies for Apple. He says, hey, I'm going to put Steve Jobs in. If it's really Steve Jobs, please don't hang up. I was like, okay. And then these guys, my friends just kept walking, my guys. And so then I listened to him, and he's like, well, hey, I've been following you. You know, he'd been really sick, and he had just come back from Apple. He was still very sick. And he's like, I'm really interested in buying your company. Is it for sale? And I was like, for real? He's like, yeah. I'd like you to come out to Cupertino. Can you come out tomorrow? I said, no, I'm actually in London, but I'll be out there because I needed to prepare. And I said, sure. I said, you guys, you know, you're really getting into the space. He's like, yeah, I want to buy your company. I said, oh, I thought you bought AdMob. And he's like, no, I want to buy your company. So if you want to come out. And I'll hang the phone up now and give you to someone else to arrange it. I was like, okay. So I hung up. And then I tried to catch up with the guys. I'll never forget. They're like, who's that? I said, oh, that was Steve Jobs. And they're like, yeah, fuck you. I'm like, no, I'm serious. That was Steve Jobs. And they're like, they didn't believe me. It took me almost an hour to convince them. I was showing them the number. They're like, oh, you're messing with us. I was like, guys, we're going to go home tonight if we can because we need to prepare. Or we're just going to go back to the room. We need to prepare for the next 3 hours, the next 3 days, because we're going to Cupertino to present to Steve Jobs to sell this company. And eventually they believed me. And it was crazy. And it was one of the craziest days of my life.
It had to have been like something impossible to like believe. It's not like, hey, it's Brad Pitt on the line, and it's like
leader of the free world, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, leader of the free world, Steve Jobs.
He's a scary dude. He was.